With us now to talk more about this, NBC News national security and global affairs reporter Dan DeLuce and Jamil Jaffer, former founder, I should say, and executive director of the National Security Institute. He is also a former senior counsel to the House Intelligence Committee and a former chief counsel and senior advisor to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I thank you for being with us. And Dan, what more do we know about what's in these documents? And there are a lot of them.
There are dozens. And as you said, this is arguably the most serious breach of security since the whole Edward Snowden episode in 2013. It's on a smaller scale. We're not talking thousands of documents, but we're talking dozens. And there is a lot of sensitive information here, classified information. It's labeled secret and top secret. It shows, on the one hand, how much the U.S. has been able to penetrate Russia's government and Russia's military and the whole military campaign there in Ukraine, and able to gain insights and help the Ukrainians prosecute their war. But it also has very frank assessments of Ukraine's combat capabilities, how much ammunition they're using, when they might run out of it, what kind of damage was caused when certain strikes were carried out. And then there's these embarrassing details about how the U.S. is spying on South Korea, on Israel, and all of our other partners and allies. So the whole thing has become a headache, and the U.S. is still trying to figure out how this happened and who may be behind it.
Yeah, and so, Jamil, how sensitive is a lot of this information, and who's able to handle it normally?
Well, this is the thing.
Well, look, as a general matter, the people who have access to this type of data are folks that have collateral clearances, that is to say, confidential, secret, or top secret. None of the material that we've seen thus far, at least that I've seen on Discord and disclosed out here, indicates that it's sensitive, compartmented information. Nonetheless, information classified at the secret, top secret level has sensitive information. It can be come from human sources as well as signals intelligence. And so we've seen already the kind of damage that can be done, damage to relationships with allies, as Dan pointed out correctly, as well as information that we know tactically about the situation on the battlefield in Ukraine, whether that goes to their supplies of S-300 air defense missiles or the 155 millimeter howitzer shells that we're providing to them along with some of our allies.
So, Dan, as you wrote in your online piece on the story, a former U.S. intelligence official said the disclosure of some signals intelligence reporting about Russia and its spy agencies could cause significant damage if Moscow is able to cut off those sources of information. So if that's the case, what could that mean for the efforts to help the Ukrainians and also just, I guess, American intelligence gathering possibilities inside Russia?
It is potentially damaging because there are these references to electronic eavesdropping. And if some of those sources dry up because the Russians are able to figure out who we're listening to or what we're listening to, that affects U.S. intelligence gathering. And yes, it could affect Ukraine's campaign against the Russian invasion. And a lot of details are in these documents that the Ukrainians and the U.S. would not want out publicly. The Pentagon has acknowledged that these documents are probably authentic. They're still looking into it, but they say they appear to contain sensitive and highly classified information. So that is obviously not what the U.S. intelligence community wants out in the public sphere, and it does pose a potential risk to Ukraine's military effort there.
And so, Jamil, I mean, your thoughts on where possibly or how this possibly was extracted from DOD or anywhere else that they're being held. And I'm just thinking, I mean, like, you know, we've seen the spy balloon over the United States. We've seen it over Latin America. What are some of the efforts that are underway to get this information?
Sure. Well, there's a variety of ways that our adversaries might get this information out from an intelligence community agency. They might use electronic methods to try to get in the computer systems and the like that have this data. It doesn't appear that's what happened here. Oftentimes they'll try to exploit a human source that has access to this information. What it looks like here, based on what we've seen, which are photographs of documents, some crumpled up, looks like they might have been stuffed in a pocket or hidden, taken out maybe even as trash. Right. We've seen them, taken in places, with other objects around them that suggests that the person who's taken them sort of handled them in somewhat of an amateur manner, or at least wants to convey that impression. So it looks like they may have been removed by a human source, then photographs taken of them at a different location and then put on the internet and ultimately disseminated over Twitter and the like. It's hard to prevent that from happening because if you have a security clearance and you have access to this data, you can stick it in a bag and walk out the door. That's what we've seen other people, Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, have done in the past, using CDs or thumb drives, or even just taking physical papers out of the building. And of course, we've seen what happened with President Biden, President Trump, and Vice President Pence. They mistakenly took classified material home. That's clearly not what happened here. Here we have clearly a decision by somebody to disclose this material publicly.
And Dan, very quickly, it seems like they're being released in waves, right? This is not just a one-time thing that we're seeing. Dan, does that tell you that there are a lot more out there?
I think we just don't know. One thing is that there seems to have been a pretty wide number of people who may have had access to these documents. So the possibilities are pretty wide and various as to how this got out. We don't know if it was from within the U.S. system. We don't know if it was from a U.S. ally. We don't know if it was some kind of a hack from a foreign adversary. And we don't know if there is an ongoing threat, if maybe there is going to be more information leaked. So this is a really kind of an urgent situation for the administration.
Dan DeLuce and Jamil Jaffer, I thank you both for being with us this morning.